Gurmaga the last count Corla. And I see Minister English has taken this. Minister, you may be aware that Irish Water and the Government are proposing to locate a regional sewage plant on a 50-acre site at Clonshock in North County Dublin. And this is a planned €1 billion development. It's 4 times the size of Croke Park, with an outflow pipe located off Portmarnock through a special area of conservation at the Baldoyle-Portmarnock estuary. According to the plans that are submitted and are within Borplanolder, sewage will only be treated to the minimum secondary level. And at the very least, what I and the 14,000 residents and my colleague Deputy Sean Haughey and Councillor Owen O'Brien would insist upon is that the highest modern levels of treatment are applied. I do note that the size of the plant has been reduced from about 800,000 to 900,000 PE personal equivalent to 500,000 person equivalent, and I think this has been down to the fact that there have been over 14,000 observations through the public consultation process, which has actually been useful. Also, during a recent meeting that I held with Irish Water in June of last year, I was actually informed that the priority now for Irish Water is the continuing upgrade of the Ringsend facility to bring new technologies in there and to increase capacity. And I'm wondering if you have an update on that. But specifically, what I'm asking here is that whilst I and residents are particularly opposed to this type of development, because we believe this series of localised plants is the way forward. We have 15 plants already in Fingal which have processed the waste where it is actually generated, and that we don't go down this road of a 1.4, anything between 1 billion and 1.4 billion of an orbital sewer with a massive regional wastewater treatment plant. And really, that's what our main objections would be. Firstly, on the grounds of environmental damage and potential damage there, quality of life for residents in Clonshock and Portmarnock and the surrounding areas, also the fishing industry that's there, the horticultural sector. But the cost to the taxpayer is fundamental. I've been asking time and time again for a cost-benefit analysis in this project, and actually, well before you assumed the role of Minister for State, I actually asked who was Minister Brendan Howlin at the time, as Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform, to carry out a cost-benefit analysis on this, and he'd actually promised that that would be done. Now, my understanding is that that has not been done. But really, with the purpose of asking Minister Murphy this question, I know he's not here today, but I am glad you are, because you're within the Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government, is to inform the House what has been spent to date on this project. And I think that's important, that we keep an eye on large capital projects. I think your government will understand how important that is when you take into account the debacle of the National Children's Hospital. We want to ensure that whatever happens with the development of additional wastewater treatment plant facilities in the area, be they the large regional ones, which we don't support, but the smaller localised ones that would serve 80,000–90,000 person equivalent and those areas, that we have a handle on the costs. So I would be greatly obliged if you could advise what has been spent to date, what the government's plans are insofar as the 2019 to 2024 Irish Water Strategic Funding Plan. Have you allocated further funding to bring this plant to construction, bearing in mind that An Bord Pleanála have granted residents, myself, Deputy Haughey and Councillors Owen O'Brien and Sean Paul Mahon, an oral hearing on the 20th of March. But I just want to try to get a handle on where the costs are at so far, what allocation and capital funding has been made for this year, and if you have figures into next. Gurmagat.
Ministers, 4 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Curl. I'll try and answer some of the questions you've raised. I won't have all the detail you've asked for, because some of the issues you've raised are a little bit different to what you initially proposed, but I have no problem in getting further information for you. And if we need to organise a meeting with Irish Water, with ourselves, I'm happy to do that too, because we're happy to, it's an open book and then have that space. So I want to thank Deputy O'Brien for raising this issue. The Greater Dublin Region Project involves the development of a new regional wastewater treatment facility and associated drainage infrastructure to serve the growing population of the North Dublin area. The current estimated cost of delivering the project is in the region of 500 million over the life cycle of the project, including the planning stage. I don't have a breakdown of all those costs for you. I know you want the initial costs so far in planning, so I don't have them for you. I can try and get them for you at a later stage. Since the 1st of January 2014, Irish Water has statutory responsibility for all aspects of water services planning, delivery and operation at national, regional and local level. Irish Water, as a single national water service authority, takes a strategic nationwide approach to assist planning and investment and meeting customer requirements. Irish Water delivers its services in accordance with the Water Service Strategic Plan published in October 2015. This sets out a high-level strategy over 25 years to ensure the provision of clean, safe drinking water, effective management of wastewater, environmental protection and support for economic and social development. The first National Water Services Policy Statement, prepared in line with the Water Services Act, which Minister Murphy launched on the 21st of May 2018, outlines a clear direction to strategic planning and decision-making on water and wastewater services in Ireland. It identifies key policy objectives and priorities for the delivery of water and wastewater services in Ireland over the period to 2025. It provides a context within which necessary funding and investment plans by Irish Water are framed and agreed. On the 7th of November 2018, Minister Murphy approved Irish Water's Strategic Funding Plan 2019-2024, which sets out Irish Water's multi-annual strategic funding requirement of €11 billion to 2024. This comprises €6.1 billion investment in infrastructure and assets and €4.9 billion in operating costs. This significant multi-billion euro investment programme is to ensure the continued operation, repair and upgrading of the country's water and wastewater infrastructure to support social and economic development across the state and continued care of the water environment. Irish Water's Strategic Funding Plan is also subject to economic regulatory review by the Commission for Regulation of Utilities, the CRU, who will consider the efficiency of its investment proposals. The Strategic Funding Plan sets out the financial plan for capital investments to support Irish Water's strategic objectives in order to deliver improvements to water services. I understand from Irish Water that they have made an application for strategic infrastructure development for the Greater Dublin Drainage Project to Bord Pleanála on the 20th of June 2018. Bord Pleanála then held a period of statutory public consultation. It is anticipated that the Board will commence an oral hearing on the project shortly, and I gather you have been involved in that process as well and are participating fully as well on that. You do reference the cost-benefit analysis. I presume that will be certainly part of an oral hearing discussion, because generally when you're bringing forward these projects you have to prove the alternative options, and that goes down to the cost and environmental and so on. So I would imagine that will be dealt with there, but I'll certainly pursue that further for you as well in the meantime and get you any information I can on that too.
Thank you, Deputy. 2 minutes.
Thanks, Minister. Just and knowing that you're not the direct line minister for this project, so I say this respectfully, that the question itself hasn't been answered at all. What I've looked for is the costs incurred to date, and I think the Dáil should receive answers to that as members here, and that we should, particularly in large capital projects like this, and this is the only cost I was ever able to get or estimate was in the region of 1 to 1.4 billion. That's a lot of money. It may not be, but we need to get a handle on what costs are being incurred to date, and that's really what I want to get to. I remain absolutely opposed to this type of development, and I really do believe that government need to go back and look at what they've proposed. This proposal is 4, 5, 6 years in existence. It's proposing to treat waste to the very basic standard of secondary, not tertiary treatment. And actually the model itself in what we're proceeding with is flawed. And certainly so do thousands of residents in the area, and they don't approach this from a not-in-my-backyard position. They're approaching this in a position of residents who have 15 wastewater treatment plants in the area, and that this waste is effectively to become a treatment plant for all the waste in the Greater Dublin area, to be piped in an orbital sewer around the M50 and to be piped into a wastewater treatment plant at Clonshaugh, a 50-acre site, and then out through a special area conservation from the Baldoyle Estuary. You actually couldn't really make it up if you planned it now. You wouldn't plan this now. And that's why I'm calling for a real cost-benefit analysis and to halt now and look at it before we have a situation like has happened in St James's, where the state runs away with itself and wastes 1.4, 1.5 billion that's not actually required. So could I ask you, Minister, to ask of officials within your department in Irish Water to give us the exact spend to date on this project, and what is the estimated cost of delivery of this project? Thank you.